It's Thursday, the 31st of October, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 big stories to race through in 5 minutes, so let's get cracking. Story number 1, after 3.5 years, headline inflation has fallen back into the Reserve Bank's preferred target range of 2 to 3%, but don't expect any interest rate cuts anytime soon.
No, so the headline rate was 2.8% for the year to the end of September, 0.2% for the September quarter, according to the ABS. Why was it so low? Because of those $75 a quarter energy rebates the government has given us. If you take those out and all the other volatile items, you get what they call the trimmed mean rate, 3.5%. 0.8% for the quarter, 3.5% for the year, still above what the Reserve Bank wants it to be at. The good news is that trimmed mean measure is definitely falling. The bad news is that services inflation, which is very much stuff around like wages, feeds into services inflation, insurance premiums, housing costs, that type of stuff, still stuck about 4.6%. Goods inflation is actually at 1.4%. The results overall touch lower than Reserve Bank forecast. Jim Chalmers was happy about it. He said the economy is on track for a soft landing.
What's the Reserve Bank make of this now, Sean? What do they do?
Well, they're meeting next week. Very unlikely that they'll do anything on interest rates. They meet again in the middle of December. Not much extra info between now and then. February next year is probably the first time that economists think they might cut rates. Otherwise, it might be a few months later than that. Basically, tight labour market, low productivity growth, strong government spending is working to keep inflation higher. However, the underlying trend on inflation is down. I think the best we can expect next week is for the Reserve Bank to at least start talking about an easing of monetary policy.
Okay, moving on to story number 2 now. And Woolworths' share price fell 6% yesterday after the supermarket leader lowered its profit forecast for the current half year. And the reason is quite significant. It's because it needed to put on more promotions to just drag shoppers into its stores.
Oh, the irony. Woolies said prices had fallen 0.3% over the September quarter. If you take out fruit, veg and tobacco, it was nearly 2%. Meat, pantry and freezer items have fallen. More customers are out there buying cheaper home brands as well. New chief executive of Woolies, Amanda Bardwell, said customers are experiencing cost of living pressures. She also talked about e-commerce doing well, but it's less profitable because it just costs more for Woolies to fulfill orders in e-commerce than it does people coming into the store. Also, Woolies has its own cost pressures, labour, rent, energy. That's the Woolies side of the argument. That company is under all sorts of political scrutiny over whether discounting has been real. Woolies says it has, and the economic slowdown is biting.
Story number 3, Sean. Superannuation funds spent more than $400 million, that's members' retirement savings, on marketing and sponsorships in the 2023 financial year.
The big super funds also gave $14 million to unions, including nearly $4 million to the CFMEU. Now, the 10 biggest spent $300 million in marketing and sponsorships. Aussie Super spent $60 million in marketing, the highest of the lot. $43 million of that was on advertising. Australian Retirement Trust spent $42 million, including $11 million in sponsorships. Mind you, Host Plus spent $12 million on sponsorships. AFL's Richmond Tigers, NRL South Sydney Rabbitohs among them. This is all according to APRA figures as reported in The Australian. The APRA is cracking down on inappropriate super fund spending. They want to know whether this spending is in the best interest of members. Excellent question.
Story number 4. How about this, Sean? Afterpay co-founder Anthony Eisen is leaving Block, the company that bought Afterpay in a record $39 billion deal 3 years ago.
Yes, the biggest M&A deal in Australian history made Eisen and co-founder Nick Molnar very rich. Eisen's worked for Block ever since the deal a little over 3 years ago. They're kind of the fathers of the buy now, pay later movement in Australia, which is a reboot of lay-by. It allows for 4 payments, really suited millennials. It used technology well, pretty much part of the landscape nowadays. Anthony Eisen, he's done well for himself according to the AFR Rich List. He's now worth $1.4 billion. I reckon I'd quit work as well.
Oh, me too. Last one. Story number 5. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has given what observers called her closing argument ahead of Tuesday's election, with the poll still showing no clear favourite.
That's right. Kamala Harris's speech was the equivalent to Donald Trump's speech at Madison Square Garden in the last couple of days. She attacked Donald Trump as unstable, obsessed with revenge, and out for unchecked power. I quote, "America, we know what Donald Trump has in mind: more chaos, more division, and policies that help those at the very top and hurt everyone else." She also made a pitch to be the candidate of national unity. She said she'd be a president for all Americans and always would put country above party and self. She delivered her address in Washington, D.C. with the White House in the background. She stood on the ellipse, which was the site of Trump's January 6, 2021 speech in which he called on his supporters to fight like hell hours before they stormed the US Capitol.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Thursday, the 31st of October, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget, every Thursday there's a new episode of The Property Pendulum brought to you by Fear and Greed and Domain, where we take a look this week at house prices. The new house price report is out from Domain this week, and some of those numbers are just staggering. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.